The strength of structure. Like all physical matter, the human body is impacted by the elemental force of gravity, the passage of time, and the nature of impermanence. Wood rots, metal rusts, stone crumbles, and our bodies stress out. And yet, with self-discipline and the skillful facilitation of healing artists, we can heed the body's instinctual wisdom and its pragmatic instructions, and live a graceful embodied life. Through cultivating somatic agency, we learn to balance rigor with gentleness, recognize overstrength as a weakness, and know when aspiration becomes compulsive. This understanding forms the foundational ground wherein the strong structure of a gentle life is built, one that is organized by right action, that affords vitality and a lightness of being. Sculpt away excess, reveal essence. Sculpting away everything that is not essential reveals essence. Michelangelo's knowing eye saw the angel buried within the stone he carved. It is this same artistic spirit that can sculpt flesh and reveal light. The sculpting process focuses upon the causal place in the armament of the physical body, where unconscious beliefs, repressed memory, and charged unresolved emotional experiences coexist. The reactivity and tension of this armament are released through whatever tools work for you. So, why I'm saying this? Because it is excruciatingly hard to find a somatic experiencing therapist that is affordable and well experienced. So you have to find another way. And that's what I did. It's about taking responsibility for your life and moving towards independence and listening, saying no to all things that push you deeper into being dependent on the system. One very influential factor is go into the woods. It will so cleanse you. Erase stuff that doesn't belong there. And you feel every time like reborn once you have spent some time in nature, connected with the trees. Trees are our friends. They just give. and they can ground you, make you feel present. It's very, very healing. So that's one tool. It's for free, and you just have to go out into the woods and spend some time there. You do not even have to walk around. You can just sit, be present, breathe, connect. It's one of the most efficient tools, yet so underestimated. Another thing is to define in which direction you want to move. What is the one thing you deeply care about? And I think visualizing might help. And then your perspective might shift away from the current situation that makes you feel suffocated. When you spend time in nature, things start to shift. Your perspective changes. You see the light, and you might not take things that seriously. You get a bird's eye perspective, perhaps. And you feel supported by nature. You don't feel isolated anymore. And that gives you this inner strength. And you can always go back into the woods and get recharged. And this will connect you with your inner core as well. And you become more flexible in your perspective, and perhaps also how you react to things. When you are like water, things may not have such a big impact anymore, may not stress you out that much. You can react in a different way, and this can become your therapist, healing you from the inside. Of course, this takes time. It doesn't go away in one day. You still have to move through things, release the trauma. But with this therapist, it can be done. Slowly but steadily. And it will so liberate you. What remains is an unencumbered neuro-emotional musculature that can relax into a natural state of ease that is conscious and dignified, a soulful revelation.
I try and talk about how one integrates the shadow, because it's not an easy answer for that. You know, people are kind of perplexed. Well, I have this dark side, and I explain a lot of where it comes from and how a lot of your aggressive impulses, like the room of 2-year-olds that you were talking about, you have that as well. I'm talking to the people that I'm my readers. You have that aggressiveness when you were young, and it got socialized out of you, and then it kind of got repressed, and it's like a lost self that lives inside of you and is screaming to come out. how do you integrate it? And so the main thing is you have to be aware that you have this shadow side. You can't run away from it. You have to acknowledge that it exists.
Once you have accepted that you have a shadow self, that you have this rage, aggression, that they are part of you, this is very healing. When you have realized that this is just normal biology, it is a survival mode. When we switch into aggression, rage, this is the fight. Or when we run away, that's the flight response. Or we can also freeze. But this is all biology. Just the same as all the animals out there show us. We humans are not different. We react in the same way. That's biology. And we need to acknowledge that. Most of us have been socialized to create compartmentalized lives in order to cope with the often conflicting demands that are shaped by our normal human encounters. In the more extreme encounters such as domestic violence, PTSD and complex PTSD, psychic scars from military service, abandonment, and substance abuse, we find ourselves fragmented into many puzzle pieces, each hungering for its homecoming into the template of our natural wholeness. The body registers and expresses this separation from wholeness with tight muscles, shallow breaths, and painful sensations. And it reminds us that if we are ever to experience our spiritual freedom and true intimacy in relationship, we must open to the promise of the big integration. And this is what trauma is about. Integration, self-acceptance, everything. Your biology too. Because it is actually protecting you. It's self-defense. But because we have been socialized and conditioned the way our society works, aggression is seen as shameful, especially in women. They want you agreeable, complying, kind. And then the fourth stress response comes into play, which is called fawn. And many people are not aware of it. You pretend to be somebody else. That's not your true self. That's not your core. That's something society has conditioned you into. And that's why you need to find this inner sense of agency. And this is where you will feel alive. This is where you get your energy back. Because you no longer pretend to be somebody you are not. So it's liberating all that energy that has been suffocated, knocked out, held back. The Big Bang of You. Most adults have psychoneurotic anxiety stories resulting from our past history and wounds. We often become impacted and defined by these imprints on our souls. Our challenge is to transform these wounds into blessings and create a new story. We can do this within the crucible of our somatic agency by alchemizing our adversity into a source of power and strength. We do this by reconciling opposing internal forces. We make the tension of opposition tolerable and dynamic by growing our body's resiliency enough to contain both paradox and contradiction. And through this new tolerance, we discover our sovereignty that transcends the pain we endured and embraces the simplicity of essential presence. This is the Big Bang of You.
Look it up. What comes up? Agency is something completely different. And so here is the description.
They call it Somatic Agency. But when I first heard about it during my somatic experiencing therapy, then it was called the sense of agency. And I didn't know what that meant, but you get a feel for it. The more you practice and feel it inside, the more you know what it might become. Giving yourself agency, being more alive. This awakening of our somatic agency is both our personal birthright and our collective calling to activate a redesigned way of being truly alive, living in sustainable balance. Somatic agency explained. Somatic, meaning experiencing and understanding your humanity as a physical being.
So you see, that in itself is so powerful. This is such a profound feeling. And I'm not saying that I have definitely found it and that it's there all the time. That's not the case. But when anxiety is turned off, or rather the brain chatter, when that is turned off, then you have clarity. You see things rather clearly. It is that inner stillness. It's peaceful once the brain chatter falls away. And it's okay to look at everything. You just accept it. And that's this inner peace you feel. And you deeply care about things. But then at the same time, you look at it from a distance. It doesn't really affect you to the degree that you would get totally upset about it. But you care. And you wish that things would change for the better, for everybody. It is really very liberating, as it removes this anxiety part. Then things look very differently, and you can finally feel your core to feel that. And it doesn't have anything to do with status, what you do, who you are on the outside. It's that deep inner felt sense. That's what it is about.
Agency, enacting self-authority and empowerment to best define your life ahead. Somatic agency, the ability to be fully actualized, harmonizing all aspects of the body, mind, and spirit. Awareness, feeling and acting on behalf of our highest self. Being truly alive.